ASMR History channel, where we explore the rich tapestry of history with a soothing touch. I'm Sophie, your guide through the echoes of the past. Today we delve into the life of Harold Godwinson, often remembered as the last Saxon king of England. While his name is forever linked to the Battle of Hastings in 1066, Harold's story is far more than a single day of defeat. Join me as we unravel the tale of a warrior king whose legacy is woven with triumphs, tactical brilliance, and the relentless spirit of a true leader. Sit back, relax, and let's journey through the life and legacy of Harold Godwinson. Often remembered as the last Saxon king of England, Harold Godwinson saw his legacy overshadowed by the catastrophic defeat at the Battle of Hastings in 1066. However, this single day of bloodshed does not encapsulate his entire life or the breadth of his accomplishments. Harold was a warrior of unmatched ferocity, known for his strength and bravery on the battlefield. He was also a general whose tactical brilliance marked the end of the Viking Age in England. His victory over Harold Hardrada, the final formidable Viking king, was a confrontation filled with blood and fury, immortalised in both Viking sagas and the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. This victory demonstrated Harold's strategic acumen and his ability to inspire and lead his troops against overwhelming odds. Harold also achieved the conquest of Wales, demonstrating his prowess in both domestic and foreign campaigns. His life was set against the backdrop of one of England's most tumultuous periods, a time marked by the fall of dynasties and the relentless caprice of fate. Harold's legacy is a tapestry of monumental triumphs and devastating losses, woven together with threads of resilience and courage. He fought resolutely until the very end, embodying the spirit of a true warrior king. This is the tale of Harold Godwinson, the last Saxon king, whose life and legacy extend far beyond the fateful battlefield of Hastings. Born into a world dominated by blood and conquest in 1022, Harold entered a realm tightly controlled by Viking rule, with Canute the Great as the reigning monarch. This period was characterised by constant power struggles and shifting allegiances. Harold's father, Godwin, had been appointed Earl of Wessex just 2 years before Harold's birth, a significant ascent from obscurity orchestrated by Canute himself. Godwin's ancestry traced back to Wulfnoth, a South Saxon thane who had fallen from favour after rebelling against King Ethelred the Unready. Despite this mark of rebellion, Godwin's lineage was intertwined with royal blood. Historians and chroniclers have linked Godwin's ancestry to Egbert, King of Wessex, the elder brother of Alfred the Great, both direct descendants of King Egbert. This connection positioned the House of Godwin as a branch of the distinguished House of Cerdic, established by Cerdic of Wessex, the leader of the Anglo-Saxon settlement in Britain, originating from distant Germanic territories. Harold's mother, Gytha Thorkelsdottir, was a Danish noblewoman, the daughter of the formidable Danish chieftain Thorkel Sprackling, although little was documented about his deeds. Through Gytha, the blood of fierce Danish warriors flowed through Harold's veins, merging with the noble Saxon heritage of his father. This blend of Viking and Saxon blood gave Harold a unique position in the English nobility, making him a figure of significant historical importance. Harold's upbringing in such a turbulent and dynamic environment undoubtedly shaped his character and prepared him for the challenges he would face as a ruler and warrior. Harold had approximately 5 brothers: Sweyn, Harold himself, Tostig, Gurth, Leofwine, and Wulfnoth. Each brother played a significant role in the intricate web of Anglo-Saxon politics alliances. Harold's father, Godwin, experienced a meteoric rise to prominence in a relatively short period. By the time Canute the Great passed away in 1035, Godwin had already established himself as one of England's wealthiest and most influential earls. His shrewd political manoeuvres and unwavering loyalty to the reigning monarch secured him a position of immense power. Consequently, Harold and his siblings were raised in an Anglo-Scandinavian England, enjoying the privileges of high-ranking nobility and the benefits of their father's strategic alliances. Following Canute's death, his eldest son, Harold Harefoot, ascended to the English throne with the steadfast support of Earl Godwin of Wessex. However, the kingdom was far from peaceful during this transition. Alfred Etheling, a son of the deposed King Ethelred the Unready, sought to reclaim his birthright, leading an invasion force composed of Norman mercenaries. Earl Godwin, ever the astute strategist, intercepted Alfred's forces. In a dark act of betrayal, he handed Alfred over to Harold Harefoot. This treachery led to Alfred being blinded and brutally murdered. The blood of this betrayal stained Godwin's name, tarnishing his reputation. Despite the moral implications of his actions, in the ruthless game of power, Godwin's influence only grew, demonstrating his ability to navigate the perilous waters of political intrigue and maintain his status. In 1040, Harold Harefoot passed away, leading to his brother Harthacnut's ascension to the English throne. Godwin, ever the astute political player, supported Harthacnut's claim, thereby securing his lands and status once more by aligning with the new king. During Harthacnut's rise, Harold Godwinson, then around 20 years old, pledged an oath of loyalty to the king alongside his father. This pledge was a strategic move to atone for the murder of Alfred Etheling, ensuring the Godwinson family remained in royal favour. However, Harthacnut's reign was brief and ended tragically at a wedding feast, where he collapsed in a dreadful convulsion and spoke no more. With his death, another son of Canute the Great died childless, marking the end of his line. The sudden and unexpected demise of Harthacnut shifted the balance of power once more, leaving a vacuum that required swift political manoeuvring. The demise of Harthacnut loosened the Viking grip on England, allowing the English crown to revert to the ancient Wessex line. Edward, the last surviving son of Ethelred the Unready, was in exile in Normandy, but was soon summoned back to England to reclaim his birthright. Earl Godwin, the ever-shrewd puppet master, threw his substantial support behind Edward's claim. This move was not merely an act of loyalty, but a calculated strategy to solidify his own power and secure his family's future. Godwin's influence expanded as his jurisdiction extended over the prosperous lands of Kent. His support for Edward was a masterstroke in political strategy, ensuring that the House of Godwin remained at the heart of English politics. Through these carefully orchestrated moves, Godwin and his family continued to weave their influence into the very fabric of the English kingdom, navigating the ever-changing tides of power and maintaining their prominence amidst the shifting allegiances and conflicts of the time. In 1045, Harold was appointed Earl of East Anglia, a position of significant power and influence, largely thanks to his father's deep political connections with the king. Godwin, the wealthiest and arguably the most powerful man in the realm, had successfully manoeuvred his family to prominence within the kingdom. The Godwinson family's stature rose even higher that same year, when Harold's sister Edith married King Edward. This union further strengthened the family's influence and bound Harold and the king by ties of brotherhood through marriage. Around the same time, Harold also married. His wife, Edith the Fair, also known to history as Edith Swanwick, was a wealthy and beautiful noblewoman from East Anglia. Her lineage was impeccable, with her mother being a Saxon princess. Their marriage, though not sanctioned by the church and performed in the Danish tradition through a ceremony known as hand-fasting, was seen as entirely normal at the time. The couple had at least 6 children together, and their union was one of love, as well as a sound political alliance for both Harold and Edith. This marriage further cemented Harold's influence and provided a network of alliances that would prove beneficial in his political career. Growing up during the reign of Viking kings, Harold witnessed the restoration of the House of Wessex and the fall of various dynasties. He also observed his father Godwin's political manoeuvring, which secured the family's rise from obscurity to becoming the most powerful house in England. These experiences profoundly impacted Harold, teaching him the impermanence of power, the fragility of life, and the necessity of strategic action during chaotic times. The political landscape of England was fraught with danger, and Harold's keen understanding of these dynamics played a crucial role in his ascent to power. Harold's elder brother, Sween, had been granted the title of Earl over several baronies, but faced exile in 1047 due to his abduction of an abbess. As a result, Sween's lands were divided between Harold and his cousin, making Harold the eldest legitimate son, and allowing him to integrate some of his brother's estates into his own holdings. King Edward the Confessor sought to strengthen his alliances and formed a partnership with Henry III, the Holy Roman Emperor. In 1049, Harold was tasked with aiding Henry by leading a fleet against Baldwin, the Count of Flanders. This mission highlighted Harold's rising influence and reinforced the strategic relationship between the English crown and the Holy Roman Empire. Harold's successful leadership in this endeavour not only showcased his military prowess, but also solidified his position as a key player in the European political arena. To solidify his rule, King Edward the Confessor surrounded himself with advisors, nobles, and clergy from his Norman background, significantly influenced by his maternal heritage. This surge of Norman presence was fiercely opposed by Godwin, who staunchly defended the interests of the native English. A violent encounter in Dover between the townspeople and Eustace II, Count of Boulogne, sparked a crucial conflict that would test the king's authority. Edward ordered Godwin to punish the Dover citizens, but Godwin, standing firm, refused to act against his own people. This act of defiance was both a stand against foreign influence and a direct challenge to Edward's authority, highlighting the deep-seated tensions between the native English nobility and the incoming Norman advisors. The Godwin family commanded extensive power, holding multiple earldoms, and even having a member in the king's inner circle. Their influence was vast and deeply rooted in the English nobility. In contrast, King Edward's personal estates, though considerable, were likely smaller than those of his predecessors and scattered across various earldoms. This dispersion left him without a strong local power base, making it difficult for him to assert his dominance effectively. Additionally, Edward, having recently returned to England as a half-Norman outsider, lacked experience in English governance and leadership. This situation set the stage for a confrontation between the powerful Earl Godwin and the relatively inexperienced king, as Edward's reliance on his Norman advisors further alienated the English nobility. Edward viewed Godwin's refusal as a power struggle and quickly sought the support of Siward, Earl of Northumbria, and Leofric, Earl of Mercia, two of the most influential nobles in the realm. With their backing, Edward successfully had Alfred Atheling. Godwin, along with his wife Githa and sons Sweyn, Tostig and Gurth, sought refuge in Flanders. Meanwhile, his other sons, Leofwine and Harold, fled to Dublin, dispersing the Godwin family's power temporarily but not destroying their resolve. In 1052, Godwin and Harold launched small fleets and rendezvoused off the southwest coast of England, marking the beginning of their comeback. They gained support from the ports of Sussex and Kent, amassing a significant force that would challenge the king's authority once more. This combined fleet sailed to London, where Godwin pressured the king into negotiations, threatening civil war if their demands were not met. The resulting settlement was entirely in Godwin's favour, a testament to his enduring influence and strategic acumen. The Godwin family's earldoms were reinstated, the Queen was recalled, and many of the king's French allies were banished. The Godwinson family re-established their dominance so effectively that Edward never again dared to challenge them, securing their power and influence within the kingdom for years to come. However, Godwin's moment of glory was fleeting. In 1053, merely a year after his ascent to power, he suddenly collapsed while celebrating Easter at Winchester, accompanied by several of his sons and King Edward. At the pinnacle of his influence and with his family's power solidifying, Godwin met his untimely demise during the feast. Following his death, the mantle of leadership within the family passed to Godwin's second son, Harold, who assumed the title of Earl of Wessex. Harold's previous earldom of East Anglia was reassigned to Alfgar, the son of the Earl of Mercia. Sweyn, Godwin's eldest son, was disqualified from receiving any titles due to his pilgrimage to Jerusalem, during which he perished in September 1052 on the return journey. In the subsequent years, several earldoms became vacant and were allocated to Harold's younger brothers, further entrenching the Godwin family's dominance in English politics. In 1055, Siward, the Earl of Northumbria, passed away, paving the way for Harold's younger brother, Tostig, to succeed him. 2 years later, in 1057, the Earl of Mercia died, and his son Alfgar succeeded him, once again leaving East Anglia vacant. This strategically important earldom was then granted to another of Harold's brothers, Gurth. Additionally, the counties of Essex, Hertfordshire, Buckinghamshire, Middlesex, Surrey, and Kent were consolidated into a new earldom, which was granted to Leofwine, yet another of Harold's younger siblings. Under King Edward the Confessor's reign, the Godwin family exerted control over nearly all of England, with the exception of Mercia. By this time, King Edward was largely content to delegate the kingdom's effective governance to his powerful earls, predominantly the Godwinsons, who had become the most influential family in the realm. In 1063, Harold Godwinson launched a daring and bloody campaign against Llywelyn ap Gruffydd, the formidable ruler who had held sway over Wales since 1055. Llywelyn had successfully unified the Welsh territories, posing a significant challenge to Harold and his monarch's ambitions. With conquest on his mind, Harold initiated a bold cavalry raid deep into Welsh lands. The mission was clear and brutal: to eliminate Llywelyn and dismantle his dominion. Despite the ferocity and speed of the attack, the mission failed, leaving the Welsh king unscathed and his rule intact. Unfazed by this initial failure, Harold regrouped and meticulously planned a more comprehensive assault. Later that year, he allied with his brother, Tostig, the Earl of Northumbria, forming a powerful coalition aimed at subduing Llywelyn. This time, the invasion was meticulously strategized, utilizing both land and naval forces in a coordinated designed to devastate the Welsh heartlands. The brothers led their armies with relentless determination, advancing through the rugged terrain and leaving a path of destruction in their wake. Villages were razed, crops were burned, and the once vibrant landscape was stained with blood, marking the severity of their campaign. The sheer brutality and relentless pressure exerted by Harold and Tostig's forces began to take a significant toll on their adversaries. As the battle raged on, the Welsh king's men found themselves increasingly exhausted and disheartened by the continuous assault. The unending wave of attacks led to a sense of futility among the defenders, who started to realise that resisting such an overwhelming force was becoming impossible. The devastation brought by the invaders not only wreaked havoc on the land, but also sowed deep seeds of discontent and despair among the Welsh soldiers. In their desperation to save themselves from further destruction, the Welsh soldiers made a fateful decision to turn against their own leader. Betrayal seethed through the ranks, spreading like wildfire. In a grim act of treachery, the Welsh assassinated their own king, severing his head from his body in a brutal display of rebellion. The decapitated head of the Welsh king was then sent to Harold as a grim offering, symbolising the devastating effectiveness of his campaign and the complete collapse of Welsh resistance. This brutal act not only eliminated a significant threat to Harold's forces, but also solidified his reputation as a formidable and decisive military leader. Consequently, Harold now held sway over Wales, his power extending far and wide. He became the undisputedly most powerful Earl in all of England, inheriting the mantle of his late father Godwin, and securing his position in the annals of history. In 1064, Harold experienced an unexpected shipwreck at Ponthieu, an event that has since been shrouded in speculation and mystery. According to the earliest post-conquest Norman chroniclers, King Edward had previously dispatched Robert of Jumièges, the Archbishop of Canterbury, to appoint Duke William of Normandy, Edward's maternal kinsman, as his heir. These chroniclers assert that Harold's later voyage was intended to swear fealty to William, affirming the Duke's claim to the English throne. However, scholars debate the reliability of this narrative, suggesting that it may have been influenced by Norman propaganda. While William seemingly believed he had been promised the succession, certain actions of King Edward, such as his efforts to bring his nephew, Edward the Exile, the son of King Edmund Ironside, back from Hungary in 1057, contradict this claim. These conflicting accounts have led historians to question the true purpose of Harold's voyage and the events that followed his shipwreck. Later, Norman chroniclers proposed alternate reasons for Harold's journey across the Channel. Some suggest he was seeking the release of his youngest brother, Wulfnoth, who had long been held hostage in Normandy, while others speculate that Harold was driven across the Channel by an unexpected storm. Despite the differing theories, there is a general consensus that Harold was blown off course, ultimately landing at Ponthieu. Captured by Guy, the Count of Ponthieu, Harold was taken hostage at the Count's castle. William soon arrived and demanded that Guy hand over Harold. Recognising the value of having England's wealthiest Earl in his custody, William likely engaged in negotiations with Harold, the details of which have since been lost to history. This capture set the stage for a complex interaction between two of the most powerful men of the time, with implications that would echo through the years. Following his capture, Harold accompanied William on a campaign against William's adversary, Conan II, the Duke of Brittany. During this campaign, they encountered treacherous terrain near the fortified abbey of Mont Saint-Michel. In this challenging environment, Harold heroically rescued 2 of William's soldiers from quicksand, an act that showcased his bravery, quick thinking, and loyalty. Impressed by Harold's valour, William presented him with weapons and armour, a significant gesture that marked Harold's growing importance. Subsequently, William bestowed knighthood upon him, further cementing their bond. The Bayeux Tapestry and various Norman chronicles vividly depict Harold swearing an oath on sacred relics to support William's claim to the English throne. This oath, whether it was made under duress or willingly, later served as William's justification for his invasion of England. This pivotal event set the stage for one of the most momentous conflicts in English history, leading to the Norman conquest and the profound transformation of the English realm. Tostig's tenure as the Earl of Northumbria was marked by contrasting successes and failures, reflecting a turbulent and eventful period in the region's history. In his external affairs, Tostig achieved notable success, most significantly forging a strong friendship with the King of Scotland. This alliance effectively secured his northern borders from any potential threats, providing a sense of stability and security in that area. Additionally, Tostig's diplomatic skills were showcased when he led a delegation to Rome on behalf of King Edward, a mission that significantly enhanced his reputation within the broader realm and underscored his importance in international relations. He also demonstrated his loyalty and military prowess by supporting his brother Harold in campaigns against the Welsh, contributing to the overall stability of the kingdom. However, Tostig's internal policies were markedly less successful. His stringent measures to enforce the king's peace, which included harsh punishments and heavy taxation, made him deeply unpopular among his nobles and subjects. The growing discontent culminated in 1065, when Tostig was attending King Edward's court in southern England. His disgruntled nobles seized the opportunity to revolt, murdering his men and demanding his banishment from Northumbria. Harold, aiming to avoid a civil war and the further destabilisation of the kingdom, refused to march to Northumbria to reinstate his brother. Confronted with the rebels' demands and Harold's reluctance to intervene, King Edward had little choice but to agree to exile Tostig. Tostig then travelled to Flanders, seeking to gather support from powerful allies. He visited William of Normandy, King Sweyn II of Denmark, and ultimately Harold Hardrada of Norway, aiming to form alliances that could help him reclaim his earldom and power. Meanwhile, the earldom of Northumbria was granted to Morcar, the brother of Earl Edwin of Mercia. To solidify his own position and strengthen alliances, Harold married their sister Ealdgyth, thereby aligning himself with the influential Mercian brothers and securing their support for his future endeavours. Before the reign of King Edward, the Confessor in the 11th century, the English throne had been under Viking control following the conquest of England by Sweyn Forkbeard and his son, Canute the Great. This period of Viking rule left a significant mark on the English monarchy and its power structures. When the throne was eventually restored to the Saxon line, its power was significantly diminished, and the kingdom faced numerous internal and external challenges. Edward the Confessor, who ascended to the throne in 1042, is remembered as a politically weak king, whose inability to assert strong control over his nobles and maintain stability within the kingdom eventually led to a succession crisis. Edward's reign was characterised by a lack of decisive action and a failure to produce a clear heir, which left the kingdom vulnerable to external threats and internal strife. At the end of 1065, Edward fell into a coma without having clarified his preference for his successor, further complicating the situation. He died on January 5th, 1066, leaving the kingdom in a state of uncertainty and turmoil. In his final moments, Edward briefly regained consciousness and, according to some accounts, entrusted the kingdom to Harold's protection. This ambiguous deathbed declaration set the stage for the subsequent struggle for the throne, as multiple claimants emerged, each asserting their right to rule England. Upon Edward's death, a complex and contentious succession crisis ensued, with multiple claimants emerging, each asserting their right to the English throne based on a mix of blood ties, oaths, kinship, and historical links to earlier kings. This created a tangled web of legitimacy that was difficult to navigate. Among these contenders was Edgar the Aetheling, the son of Edward the Exile. Edward the Exile, who had been tragically killed en route to the English court, had been named heir by King Edward the Confessor. Edgar's claim was rooted in his lineage, as he was a direct male descendant of Alfred the Great and the grandson of Edmund Ironside, who had perished following a brutal conflict with Canute the Great. Despite his strong blood ties, Edgar's position was precarious. He had no lands, soldiers, or powerful allies to support his claim, leaving him in a vulnerable position following the king's death. This lack of resources and backing made it difficult for Edgar to assert his claim effectively, and he was soon overshadowed by other, more powerful contenders. In stark contrast stood Harold Godwinson, the formidable head of the House of Godwin and the Earl of Wessex. Wessex was not just any region, it was the wealthiest and most powerful in all of England. Harold was a towering figure at the royal court, widely renowned for his unwavering dedication and service to Edward the Confessor. His battlefield prowess was legendary, establishing him as England's most trusted and reliable military commander. His influence at court was unmatched, commanding respect and loyalty from his peers. Harold's lineage was also of great significance, tracing back to Ethelred, the King of Wessex, and elder brother of the illustrious Alfred the Great. The crown had originally passed to Alfred's direct line due to Ethelred's son's youth, during the dire threat posed by the great heathen army in the 9th century. Harold's prominent position, proven leadership, and illustrious heritage made him a formidable candidate for the throne, with both nobles and commoners looking up to him for guidance and protection. Meanwhile, in Norway, another claimant, Harold Hardrada, also set his sights on the English throne. Hardrada asserted that Edward the Confessor had usurped the rightful place of his nephew, King Magnus the Good. Magnus had been named heir to the Danish throne by King Harthacnut through a binding agreement, and Magnus believed this accord extended to the English throne as well. Edward had seized the throne before Magnus, who subsequently died childless. Harold Hardrada, having been co-king of Norway alongside Magnus, became the sole monarch upon Magnus's death. Now, Hardrada saw himself as the rightful heir to the English crown, viewing it as his inheritance, with Edward the usurper of Magnus now deceased. Hardrada's claim was not merely a matter of ambition, but also of perceived justice, as he sought to restore what he believed to be his family's rightful legacy. Another formidable contender for the throne was William, the Duke of Normandy. William claimed that Edward had not only designated him as the next king, but that Harold Godwinson had sworn a sacred oath to support William's claim. Furthermore, the relationship between England and Normandy provided additional weight to his claim. Emma of Normandy, William's great-aunt, had been Edward's mother, and Edward had spent a significant part of his early life in exile at the Norman court. Thus, William's claim was bolstered by promises and familial connections, making him a powerful contender. William's claim was underpinned by political manoeuvring, personal promises, promises and strategic alliances, painting a picture of a determined leader ready to stake his claim on the English crown. The throne of England was thus contested by 4 formidable men: Harold Hardrada, asserting his perceived rightful inheritance based on old agreements and familial ties; William of Normandy, fortified by promises, oaths, and close family connections; Harold Godwinson, the trusted military leader of Wessex, with a lineage that whispered of ancient kings; and Edgar the Aetheling, the legitimate heir by blood, yet a mere boy, powerless and without allies. This clash of claims, rooted in ambition, lineage, and allegiance, set the stage for a dramatic and historic struggle over the English crown. The contest for the throne was not just a battle of arms, but also a battle of wits, alliances, and the weight of history, each contender bringing their unique strengths and claims to the fore in a bid to shape the future of England. The day following Edward the Confessor's death, the Witenagemot convened to deliberate on the succession of the English throne. The Witenagemot, a powerful assembly composed of numerous influential lords and bishops, played a crucial role in the governance of England. These wise men weighed the merits of the 4 primary candidates vying for the throne. The Viking interlude had significantly altered the principles of succession, making the Witenagemot feel less obligated to select a king from Alfred's lineage. The dire situation called for a strong and capable leader, rather than the youthful and inexperienced Edgar the Aetheling. Despite any promises Edward the Confessor might have made to William of Normandy, he had unequivocally nominated Harold as his successor. Consequently, the day after Edward's passing, Harold was unanimously chosen by the Witenagemot and was subsequently crowned by the Archbishop of York in a ceremony that sought to solidify his authority and legitimacy. However, Harold's ascension to the throne was quickly overshadowed by imminent threats of invasion. Harold Godwinson's younger brother, Tostig, renowned for his formidable military skills, had been exiled for defying the laws of the land. This exile left him with a deep-seated resentment towards Harold, now the King of England. Driven by bitterness and a desire for vengeance, Tostig sought out King Harold Hardrada of Norway and convinced him to invade England. According to one of the sagas, Tostig sailed to Norway and greatly impressed the Norwegian king and his court with his persuasive arguments. Although Hardrada had recently ended a prolonged and inconclusive war with Denmark, Tostig's impassioned plea convinced the initially reluctant king to raise an army to pursue the English crown, igniting a fierce determination in Hardrada to seize this opportunity for conquest. Harold Hardrada, a towering figure of the Viking Age, was renowned for his formidable character and unparalleled military prowess. His name, Hardrada, meaning hard ruler, aptly described his stern and unyielding nature. Harold's extensive military career spanned several decades and regions, including battles in Norway, Denmark, and the Byzantine Empire, making him a seasoned and battle-hardened warrior. His reputation as a fierce and relentless leader struck fear into the hearts of his enemies and inspired unwavering loyalty among his followers. In September 1066, Hardrada embarked on his ambitious voyage to England, determined to claim the throne. After a crucial stop in Orkney to gather essential supplies and additional men, he was joined by the traitor Tostig Godwinson, who reinforced him with more soldiers and resources, further bolstering Hardrada's formidable force. This alliance between Hardrada and Tostig marked a significant escalation in the threat facing Harold Godwinson. The combined forces of these two formidable leaders presented a dire challenge to Harold's reign, would need to muster all his strength and strategic acumen to defend his kingdom against these determined adversaries. Upon arriving in England, Harold Hardrada unleashed the full might of his formidable Norwegian forces. These forces were further bolstered by the addition of Tostig and a contingent of Scottish troops. Hardrada's fierce gaze set upon the unprepared English coast, and his army descended upon it like wolves on their prey. The invaders plundered and burned with a ferocity reminiscent of ancient Viking raids. When they reached Scarborough in Northumbria, the local inhabitants mounted a brave, yet ultimately futile, resistance against the invaders. Without hesitation, the Vikings unleashed a storm of fire and fury, reducing the town to smouldering ruins. The flames soared skyward, sending a stark and terrifying message to other towns in the region. Faced with the prospect of a similar fate, these towns quickly opted for surrender. News of the Northmen's devastating arrival swiftly reached Earl Morcar of Northumbria and Earl Edwin of Mercia. Resolute in their determination to defend their lands and people, they quickly assembled a formidable army to confront Hardrada. The Norsemen's arrival was so rapid that the English earls did not have the opportunity to alert Harold Godwinson, their king. Instead, they chose to directly engage the invaders rather than submit. This decision led to the fierce and brutal Battle of Fulford. The battle commenced with a thunderous charge as the English forces struck first, hoping to catch the Norwegians off guard. Morcar's troops surged forward with great momentum, pushing Hardrada's men back into the treacherous marshlands. However, the seasoned Viking king, remaining unflinching amidst the chaos, rallied his warriors effectively. Reinforcements from the right flank crashed into the English centre, their ferocious battle cries reverberating through the marsh. Despite being outnumbered, the Viking invaders fought with the ferocity of berserkers, compelling the Anglo-Saxons to retreat. As more Viking warriors entered the fray, they skillfully manoeuvred around the thick of the battle, opening a third front. The Anglo-Saxons, now outflanked and overwhelmed, faced an unrelenting onslaught. Blood soaked the earth, and the air was filled with the screams of the dying. Unable to withstand the brutal assault, the English forces crumbled and were decimated, forcing the Earls of Mercia and Northumbria to retreat. The Viking losses were minimal, numbering less than 1,000 men. With York's subsequent surrender to Harold Hardrada, the victorious Norsemen withdrew to Stamford Bridge, located 7 miles east of York, to await the arrival of hostages and consolidate their control over the violently claimed territory. Harold Godwinson soon received word of the Viking invasion and, with unwavering urgency, gathered as many earls, lords, and warriors as he could muster. Driven by a fierce determination to protect his kingdom, Harold's army travelled day and night, racing from London to York. This gruelling 200-mile journey was covered in a mere 4 days, an impressive feat that showcased the king's leadership and the resilience of his forces. This rapid movement granted Harold the element of surprise, as Hardrada and his Viking horde remained blissfully unaware of the English king's proximity. The first they knew of the impending threat was the sight of the Anglo-Saxon army bearing down upon them. On the morning of September the 25th, Hardrada's forces were caught completely off guard. The English army, descending swiftly from their position, launched a ferocious attack on the unsuspecting Vikings, many of whom were unarmed and unarmoured. This brutal ambush ignited the legendary Battle of Stamford Bridge. The Vikings hastily formed a defensive line, while the bulk of their forces retreated across the bridge to the eastern bank of the River Derwent. The Norsemen, who stood to buy time, were swiftly cut down, yet one formidable warrior, a berserker of immense prowess, emerged to hold the bridge alone. According to legend, this lone axeman held the bridge against the entire English army, allowing his fellow Vikings to regroup and form a shield wall. It is said that he was a Viking berserker, undoubtedly the champion of Hardrada's forces. Due to the narrowness of the bridge, only a few soldiers could pass at a time, allowing the berserker to fight with maximum ferocity. As the Englishmen advanced towards the Viking berserker, they were swiftly met with their demise. The Norseman wielded his two-handed great axe, swinging it with brutal force, cutting down every man in his path. Yet, as one Englishman fell, another would rush over the fallen body to engage the berserker. Ultimately, 40 Anglo-Saxon warriors perished on that bridge, as the berserker turned the river red with their blood. Finally, an English soldier floated underneath the Viking warrior in a half-barrel and delivered a fatal stab to the berserker's groin, bringing him to his knees and allowing the English to kill the formidable warrior and cross the bridge. Despite the berserker's heroic last stand, his resistance had bought the Norse army valuable time to form a shield wall. Nevertheless, Harold's army surged across the bridge, locking their shields together and charging forward with unwavering determination. The battle spread far beyond the bridge, lasting for hours as both sides fought fiercely. The Norsemen, lacking their armour, were at a severe disadvantage against the well-prepared English forces. Despite this, they fought valiantly, but the relentless pressure from Harold's army began to take its toll. The English forces pressed on relentlessly, gradually breaking through the Norse shield wall. Amidst the chaos of the battle, Harold Hardrada, the most seasoned warrior on the battlefield, threw himself into the thick of the fighting. The 50-year-old veteran, without armour, gripped his sword with both hands and charged into the English ranks with the ferocity of a berserker. His bravery was evident as he fought without armour or shield, relying solely on his skill and experience. However, amidst the chaos, he was flanked and killed by an arrow that pierced his windpipe. Hardrada, the most accomplished warrior present, died on the battlefield at Stamford Bridge, marking a significant turning point in the conflict. Harold Godwinson's brother Tostig also perished in the battle, further solidifying Harold's tactical brilliance and leadership. The defeat of the legendary warrior and king, Harold Hardrada, effectively ended the Viking Age and the reign of the last great Viking warrior king. However, the victory was bittersweet as to the south. Another claimant to the throne had arrived. William, the Duke of Normandy, had landed on English shores, seeking to claim the crown for himself. While Harold fought in the north, William crossed the Channel, aiming for conquest and the establishment of a new dynasty. William, the Duke of Normandy, sought divine approval for his invasion, securing the blessing of Pope Alexander II. This papal endorsement gave William's cause a sense of legitimacy and divine favour. But divine favour alone was not sufficient for the ambitious Duke. He also forged alliances with powerful earthly figures, gaining the support of the Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV and King Sweyn II of Denmark. With these divine and mortal alliances bolstering his forces, William's fleet set sail and crossed the Channel on the fateful eve of September 28th, 1066. Upon landing, William's forces quickly established a foothold, preparing for the inevitable confrontation with Harold Godwinson. The stage was set for a monumental clash that would determine the fate of England. Harold, having just secured a hard-fought victory at Stamford Bridge, now faced the daunting task of marching his exhausted army south to meet this new threat. The impending battle would not only decide the fate of the English crown, drenched in blood and weary from battle, had no choice but to swiftly redirect his forces southward to confront the imminent threat posed by the Norman invaders. The urgency of the situation allowed little time for rest or recovery, but Harold's determination and leadership rallied his troops. Taking advantage of the brief respite, William and his seasoned warriors erected a stronghold at Hastings. This wooden and iron fortress was designed to protect the Norman forces from the anticipated English onslaught, providing a secure base of operations. As dawn broke on October 14th, 1066, the fields of Hastings witnessed the assembly of two powerful armies. On one side stood William, commanding the Normans, renowned for their sturdy armour and Viking heritage. On the other side was Harold, leading the full might of the English army, composed of battle-hardened warriors from his recent victory. William strategically divided his troops into three groups: archers, infantry, and cavalry. He positioned archers and crossbowmen at the front to initiate the attack, followed by foot soldiers ready for close combat, and stationed the cavalry at the rear, prepared to charge when the moment was right. William took his place among the elite, coordinating the battle through his voice and gestures, demonstrating his command and strategic acumen. As Harold's forces emerged from the shadows of the forest, they ascended to a strategic hilltop. From this elevated position, they unleashed a relentless hail of javelins on any Norman soldiers attempting to climb, transitioning into fierce close-quarters combat. The English formed a robust shield wall, their shields interlocked to create an almost impregnable defence. The battle began with Norman archers launching volleys of arrows uphill, but their efforts were in vain against the resolute English shield wall. The arrows either bounced off the shields or failed to find their mark among the tightly packed defenders. When the Norman infantry engaged in melee combat, they were met with a devastating storm of javelins, further thinning their ranks. The English soldiers, skilled in hand-to-hand combat, took full advantage of their defensive position, cutting down many of the Norman attackers. Despite their bravery and efforts, William's troops struggled to penetrate the steadfast Saxon defence. In a desperate attempt to shift the battle's momentum, the Norman cavalry charged with the hope of breaking through the English lines. However, they too were repelled by the impenetrable shield wall. The cavalry's initial charge was met with a coordinated and disciplined response from the English soldiers, who held their ground and maintained their defensive formation. The battle raged on, with neither side willing to concede. The Normans, though frustrated, continued to launch assaults, while the English maintained their defensive position on the hilltop. The fields of Hastings were filled with the sounds of clashing weapons, battle cries, and the groans of the wounded. Both armies knew that the outcome of this battle would determine the future of England. The tension and stakes were high, and each side fought with a ferocity born of desperation and ambition. As the day progressed, the determination of both armies was tested to its limits. William's strategic prowess and Harold's steadfast leadership were on full display as each manoeuvred their forces to gain the upper hand. The Battle of Hastings would prove to be one of the most decisive and significant confrontations in English history, marking the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter in the story of the nation. Despite their fatigue, the English army, buoyed by their recent triumph over Harold Hardrada in the north, fought with relentless determination. Blood stained the hillside as the indomitable spirit of the English warriors drove the Normans back, showcasing their endurance, bravery, and the formidable strength of the English forces under the leadership of King Harold Godwinson. The English, still riding the high of their victory at Stamford Bridge, displayed an unyielding resolve that seemed to infuse them with renewed energy. As the Normans contended with the unwavering resolve of Harold's soldiers firmly positioned on the hill, they sustained heavy casualties, causing the battle to tilt in favour of the Anglo-Saxons. This ultimately led to a widespread retreat among the Norman ranks, their forces faltering under the relentless pressure exerted by the English. Amidst the pandemonium, a rumour swept through the battlefield that Duke William himself had been killed in the fray. Taking advantage of this moment of confusion, some Norman soldiers hastily retreated towards the sea, pursued by the advancing English, who abandoned their strategic position atop the slope in their eagerness to press the advantage. Witnessing the disorder among his troops, William, undeterred and determined, removed his helmet, revealing his face as he galloped through his retreating forces. His powerful cries rallied his men, urging them to stand their ground and reminding them of the stakes. Despite the brush with defeat, the Norman cavalry regrouped and charged back to the front lines. William then led a counter-attack against the advancing English forces, demonstrating his resolve and tactical prowess. Amidst the chaos, the English swiftly reformed their formidable shield wall, preparing for the renewed clash with steely determination. As the battle raged on, its intensity escalated with each passing hour. The Normans, driven by desperation and the realization that their very survival hinged on the outcome, launched a final, determined assault to seize control of the ridge. In the relentless clash of steel, the devastating toll of war became painfully clear. Many Saxon lords, valiant in their defence, perished on the battlefield. Among the fallen were two of King Harold Godwinson's own brothers, Gurth and Leofwine. Their deaths a significant blow to the morale of the English forces. Some accounts suggest that William himself killed Gurth, mistaking him for Harold, a testament to the chaos and confusion of the melee. Undeterred by these heavy losses, King Harold emerged as a formidable presence amidst the fray. His sword flashed with deadly precision as he faced one foe after another in the relentless carnage of the battle. Harold's presence inspired his men, who continued to fight fiercely despite the mounting odds. The sight of their king fighting valiantly among them imbued the English soldiers with a renewed sense of purpose and courage. The battle for the ridge was fierce and unforgiving, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The Normans, under William's resolute leadership, pressed on with unwavering determination, knowing that victory was within their grasp. The struggle for dominance raged on, with the outcome hanging in the balance. The Normans, utilising their superior cavalry tactics, sought to break through the English shield wall, while the English, drawing on their superior defensive formations and the strategic high ground, fought to repel the invaders. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the battlefield, the tide of battle shifted once more. The Norman forces, emboldened by their leaders' tenacity and the relentless pressure they exerted, managed to exploit a weakness in the English lines. Harold, fighting bravely at the forefront, was struck down, an arrow piercing his eye. His death marked a turning point in the battle, as the English forces, leaderless and demoralised, began to falter. The Battle of Hastings concluded with a decisive Norman victory, heralding the end of Anglo-Saxon rule and the dawn of a new era under William the Conqueror. The death of King Harold Godwinson and the defeat of his army at Hastings altered the course of English history, paving the way for the Norman conquest and the profound transformation of the English social and political landscape. The legacy of this epic confrontation would resonate through the centuries, a testament to the courage and determination of those who fought and the enduring impact of their struggle. Hash, hash, hash. Expanded paragraphs. The battle seemed endless, with both sides locked in a fierce and relentless struggle. According to historical accounts, William had 2 to 3 horses killed under him during the conflict. Despite being battered and bruised from the falls, he continued to fight on, demonstrating remarkable resilience and determination. This tenacity, combined with the superiority of Norman French mixed cavalry and infantry tactics over the traditional Germanic Scandinavian shield wall, allowed William to breach the English defences. The ensuing melee saw William's forces overwhelming Harold's troops in a chaotic and bloody confrontation. Harold Godwinson, the king who had ended the Viking Age, conquered Wales, and established the new dynasty of the House of Godwin, fought to the bitter end amid the carnage. His efforts were reminiscent of the valour displayed by Saxon kings of old, yet fortune did not favour him at Hastings. Ultimately, Harold was slain on the battlefield. According to one account, Harold met a gruesome end at the hands of 4 Norman knights. The first knight cleaved his breast through his shield, causing a torrent of blood to drench the earth. The second knight struck off Harold's head below his helmet, while the third pierced his belly with a lance. The fourth knight hewed off his thigh and carried away the severed limb, adding to the brutality of Harold's demise. The details surrounding King Harold's death at the Battle of Hastings remain shrouded in uncertainty, as various narratives and interpretations compete for recognition. Among these, the Chronicles of William of Malmesbury offer a particularly vivid depiction, suggesting that Harold's tragic end came from an arrow that struck his eye and penetrated deep into his brain. Despite these differing accounts, historians agree on one crucial point. Harold met his end at the Battle of Hastings, fighting valiantly until the very last moment. The contrasting stories reflect the chaos and complexity of medieval warfare, as well as the difficulty in reconstructing events with absolute certainty. Harold's final stand at Hastings has become a symbol of his indomitable spirit and unwavering dedication to his kingdom. Harold's legacy often pales in comparison to that of his adversaries, yet it is marked by significant achievements and a relentless defence of his realm. His crucial victory over Harold Hardrada at the Battle of Stamford Bridge marked the definitive end of the Viking Age, a monumental feat in itself. Harold battled tirelessly, forging a path of resistance against foreign invaders and defending his claim to the throne as a descendant of an ancient Saxon king, entrusted with the kingdom by the late King Edward the Confessor. However, history frequently narrates Harold's story through the lens of William the Conqueror's triumphs, relegating Harold's achievements to the periphery. It is essential to illuminate the legacy of this towering figure, to honour his significant contributions to the fabric of English history, and to ensure that his story is duly remembered. By acknowledging Harold's role and sacrifices, we can gain a more comprehensive understanding of this pivotal period in England's past, appreciating the complexities and nuances that shape the nation's history. As we conclude our exploration of Harold Godwinson's life, it's clear that his legacy extends far beyond the fateful battlefield of Hastings. From his early days navigating the turbulent waters of Anglo-Saxon politics to his final stand against overwhelming odds, Harold's story is one of resilience, bravery, and indomitable spirit. I hope this journey through history has not only enlightened you, but also provided a moment of calm reflection. Thank you for joining me on the ASMR History channel. If you enjoyed this exploration, please like, subscribe, and and share with fellow history enthusiasts. Until next time, may the whispers of history continue to soothe